let's talk about some of the common types of startup pitches that you're going to encounter based off of real scenarios and real areas that you're going to run into and how you can navigate them best. It's a common problem that a lot of founders run into, that they find a place to pitch or they get into a scenario where it's kind of a pitch scenario and they fumble it. They don't fumble it because they are trying to. They fumble it because they're excited. They fumble it because they don't have a format. They fumble it because they're nervous. 100 reasons, and most of them valid, but avoidable. Very, very avoidable, especially if you prepare properly. So let's dive right in. So there's really four common startup pitch scenarios we're going to talk about that I think of on the day-to-day. Again, practical. This is not pie in the sky. This is not, oh, but maybe. No, this is, we've seen it, we've lived it, we've used all of these and encountered all of these pitch scenarios in one form or another. So first is the one-line pitch. This is the big one. We're going to talk about this one, in just a minute, but this is the big one to make sure you get right first. Because if you get this right first, it sets the stage for everything that comes after, both for you as a business and the thinking that you're doing and how you speak to your business, but also the stage that you set to talk to the investor, to talk to the mentor. Because remember, they don't know anything about you potentially. So what you say, that's what they know. So you got to make that first line really, really good. Next is the 60-second pitch. This is okay, I have a little bit more time, or I've been given the mic at an event. Imagine you go to a networking event and they go, hey, we're going to have everybody give a brief intro, 30 to 60 seconds, share a little bit about your business. Sounds like a very real scenario, right? Because it is, and we encounter it all the time. Next is your 5 to 10 minute pitch. This is when you start getting into the details a bit. This is when you have the PowerPoint behind you. This is when you're on stage. This is when you're at a pitch competition, whatever it might be, but you've got a little bit more, room to breathe. But in that room to breathe, there's higher expectations as to what you're going to communicate, the thoroughness that you communicate it with, the expectations that you set. Again, all these pieces and how they interweave into one hopefully cohesive pitch. And then last but not least is, 10-minute pitch plus. In this scenario, this is you're sitting and having a coffee one-on-one with an investor. You're at your, rich aunt or rich uncle's house and you're going to pitch them on the product and you brought a printout of it, or you're screen sharing with a venture capitalist. These are the times where you've got way more time to talk, way more time for dialogue. And they're going to want to get a sense not of the core areas of the business, but the holistic sense of the business. Not necessarily they want to hear every single plan for the next 30 years, but they want to get a sense of what's going on today across all major departments and all major levels to make sure I have confidence in whatever the next step is of this conversation. So again, big one-line pitch. Second biggest one, 10-minute pitch, because that's a real scenario that leads to money, leads to mentors, leads to advisors, whatever it is. So I'd really especially focus on those two. So first is the one-line pitch. There's two ways that I've seen it done that I think you should kind of keep in your back pocket. One is the comparison pitch. Comparison pitch, very easy. And what it does is it relies on a known business or entity or startup or something. It gives somebody a good base of knowledge that they go, oh, I know what that is. And if you're saying you're like that, then I get it. So we're the Uber of boats. We're the, we're the Chipotle of tacos, whatever it is. It's a comparison. It's saying they're like this, think of them like this, and all of their systems and flows and how they make money or how they function, whatever it might be, kind of map that onto us roughly, and you get a sense of who we are. It allows for that quick little moment where people go, oh, I get it, and I get where you're going. It allows you to kind of have that little interaction where you go, oh, there it is. Value proposition. This is the other way that I recommend doing this. And the reason that I recommend the value prop is it's just like one of the thickest, heaviest sentences that you can put together. And sometimes, it's a big, giant run-on sentence, but it's still one sentence. It's still you just getting through it. And the scenario of this is, I encounter it all the time. Imagine you bump into somebody at a networking event. We've all met the person that just starts talking and they just keep talking and they never ask you about you. And they just keep going. And you have no idea what they're talking about. And what they're talking about is all over the place. That's the time to use this. Because this is hey, what do you do? What's your answer? right? You don't have minutes, you don't have hours, you don't have presentations. You just have whatever words come out of your mouth next. And this is a great, Lego building block area of some of the main, 5 areas that I recommend you consider mentioning, and you can restructure them and reframe and reuse them as you want, but you just want to make sure that you consider what's here and what's the highest impact information that you can get across. So, first and foremost, what you are. We are a health tech SaaS company, right? We are a motocross marketplace company. We're a this, we're a that. What are you, right? Just simple, 5 words, 6 words, 3 words, whatever. What are you? Second, what do you do? So if you're a software company, right, what does your software do, right? What's the action? Not the result, the action. And we're going to talk about that in a second. The action is we improve compliance and operations adherence. So it makes you, so you're able to do your compliance and you're able to improve your operations. Punchline of like what the action is that we do. Using the motocross example, we facilitate the purchase and sale of new and used products online for the motocross community, right? Excellent, crisp, tight. You know what I mean? It makes sense. Number 3 is who you serve. And you heard a little bit of who you serve in number 2, which is great because that means you're able to merge things and save some time, save some words. But it's who do you serve? So better to be more specific than not specific, meaning you probably don't serve healthcare. You probably serve non-hospital facilities within the substance abuse space. You serve motocross enthusiasts that are low budget across the United States. Again, this is making it more real, more focused. I'm more inspired by the fact that you have a clear direction of who you serve versus the people that say they, serve everybody. And, if you serve everybody, you probably end up serving nobody, right? Next is which results in. So the result is a big deal. And this is a cheesy example that I use all the time, but I love it because it's real. If your dentist just told you to brush your teeth, brush your teeth, brush your teeth, brush your teeth. Kind of like saying we create operations and compliance software. We create a marketplace for motocross. You're just saying the beginning part, right? But if your dentist never finished the sentence, never said, so you have fresh breath, so you have clean teeth, so you avoid any illness related to your gums or mouth. Those are the reasons you brush your teeth. You don't brush your teeth because it's a joy to do, right? You brush it because you want the result. You're aiming for the result. So why do people like the compliance and operations software? Because they want to avoid fines. They want to avoid unnecessary risk. They want to work more efficiently. Action and result. Action and result, right? For the marketplace, for motocross, why do people want to go to that marketplace for motocross? Because the gear and parts and bikes are very expensive. So what this allows in these people that are buying, right? They're buying from very untrusted, unknown, unfriendly, not niche specific or not product or community specific websites like Facebook Marketplace, like Craigslist, whatever. So we deliver a much more trustworthy, a much more friendly, a much more inclusive, a much more specific marketplace experience so that new riders, old riders, enthusiasts, professionals, whoever needs to buy gear, whether it's new or used, can find, sort, engage, and really buy in a very convenient and comfortable way, right? Again, we're driving value, right? A small thing on which results in, and I'll just toss this in as a little aside. There's 4 main reasons people buy things, and we're going to, tier it. 1 is it makes you more money. 2 is it saves you money, right? Or saves you time. It's cost savings, right? 3 is it's a pleasurable experience or it reduces pain, right? They're kind of similar in that way, right? So you'll buy something because you want it to make you happier. You want to go to a theme park, or you'll buy it because like, hey, I need a thumb brace because my thumbs hurt, so I should probably go buy one, right? And the last is to reduce risk. And I'll show you, I think of it as like a tiered system, although they're all, parts, and depending on how important each one is to the specific audience, one could be weighted more than the other. But I'll give you the clearest example of why I view it in that hierarchy. We all know people that don't have health insurance that go to amusement parks. So what does that say? That says that you're okay having more risk if it means a fun time. right? So that automatically puts, risk right below the pleasurable experience, right? And if I had to tell a business, do you want to make more money or do you want to save more money? More than likely, they're going to pursue making more money, because if you make enough money, you can pay really smart people to help you save you some money, right? But if you're just saving money, your top line revenue could be decreasing and decreasing and decreasing, and all of a sudden, or staying static. And yeah, you're saving some money, so you're a little bit more profitable, but you're not going to get to be big and giant and massive by just saving money. So again, that's why I have my four orders right there. And I always try and hit on A, as many of them as I can, but B, as high up in the food chain as I can. Because if I can speak to making more money or reducing cost, I'm going to speak to that 10 times more than reducing risk. Again, taking into account who I'm selling to. So for that healthcare business, they focus a lot on risk and compliance. So they're hitting on number 4 really strong. But number 4 has big implications to number 3, which is the experience of the employees doing the compliance. And number 2, the cost savings that they realize by having less employees quit, by saving a bunch of time, by enabling them to do their job better, leading to better patient outcomes, leading to maybe more revenue. Again, a narrative emerges just because I'm thinking through the different results that my solution offers, right? And last is, now this one's variable. And the reason I say it's variable is because it's not always good to immediately, go front foot and start, talking smack about your competitors, but it's good to know, and you should know, and I would say you must know why you're different and what makes you better and what's your kind of competitive advantage. So using the motocross company as the example, just because it's nice and clean and everybody I think can relate to, a sports enthusiast or a hobby enthusiast, whatever it might be. Unlike our competitors, Craigslist and eBay, which offer a less trustworthy and less functional buyer experience, we provide something that is highly customizable and highly or and especially built for this community in mind. That is a great thing to do, and that's a great differentiator between you and your competition, because it speaks to focus and value and connection to your community. Huge things. So you can see, just by having these sentences or a couple different versions of these, because again, you want to tailor it to whoever you're talking to. Someone senior might require something different than someone junior. Someone gently related to the industry might require something different than someone who's knee deep in the industry. Whatever makes sense. Next is the 60-second pitch. So the 60-second pitch it gives you a few more sentences effectively, but there's really 6 areas that I encourage people hit on. First is, I say you do the one-line pitch, because it's clean. It sets kind of everything up, and it gives people a good foundation to talk more about what's going on. Because then you go into the next 5 pieces, which are, first, the problem. If there's no problem, or if I don't believe there's a problem, or if I don't understand there's a problem, then your solution does very little for me. Because your solution, it's kind of just like the action, right? Where it's just, oh, we built this thing that can do this. But if the thing that it can do isn't solving anything and no one wants it, no one wants to buy it, or no one wants to use it because there isn't a problem with what's going on, I'm not interested, right? Or I'm not interested from like an investment perspective, or I don't understand. I'm potentially confused, right? Solution, that's like the result, right? Where I need to understand what the problem is so that I can go, hey, this solution clearly connects to the problem. And when I talk about clearly connecting, I mean like one to one. Like, the problem is there's a lack of apples. The solution is we have trees that can make more apples. I mean, it needs to be crystal clear, because remember, this person you're talking to likely has never, or potentially has never, thought of your business or your focus ever once in their life. So that means the only thing that they know are the words that are coming out of your mouth. And if you assume they know 50 things, or you make it vague and flowy or too grandiose for them to try and get their arms around and get their minds around, you're setting yourself up to be misunderstood, or to not generate interest, or to just run into problems that you could very easily avoid. Number 4 is traction. Now, we have a saying. There's 2 types of startups: those with traction and everybody else, right? Because if I told you there was a business out there that was doubling its revenue every 3 weeks, and it was expanding into 4 times as many it's expanding into 4 markets in the next 6 months, and it's got significant team and investor interest, you don't care what industry the business is, right? you care that it's not doing anything illegal, you know what I mean, or anything like that, but the business is valid and proven valid before I even say a problem, before I even say a solution, because I've proven demand, right? I've proven interest. When I think traction, again, we want to caveman it here, make it very easy. We don't leave fancy things for fancy people. Traction is proof people like, proof that people like it, right? So do they click? Do they like? Do they link? Do they reshare? Do they join your Facebook groups? Do they sign letters of intent, which are non-binding, like indications of interest that they want your solution? Do they download your product? Do they give you revenue, right? The highest level of traction that there is, right? That revenue number. But traction, the more you can speak to traction, especially early, the better conversation you're going to have, because it automatically gets you over that 51% hump. And the way we think about it is, investors and people start with very low believability, right? They start with risk off, right? But the second you talk about traction, especially if it's good traction, you punch me straight up the believability threshold over the hurdle of, do I believe or do I not believe? You know what I mean? Does this seem real or does this not seem real? And the second you go, hey, we have 100,000 downloads, we've made $30,000 in the last 4 months. We launched our company about a year ago, and we have significant interest from a few investors looking at putting in some early money. I'm already excited because it's been proven, and my risk, my certainty threshold, that 51% is punched past 51%. It's at 60, 70, 80, potentially, depending on how, again, what I know about your business. Next is team. Now, team's especially important because in the early days of your business, there's very little business value. There is a ton of team value, right? So here's the range. When you're a startup, right, day one, hour zero, every bit of value of the company is the team, right? Because if the team were to go away tomorrow, and the team could be one person, two people, three, whatever, if the team were to go away tomorrow, the business is over. Call it quits. We're good. Now, fast forward all the way to Coca-Cola, the entire C-suite and executive board of Coca-Cola could disappear and land on a tropical island tomorrow, never to be heard from again. And you know what would happen with Coca-Cola? Nothing. It'd run the same. It would look the same. Nothing. It wouldn't even interrupt supply chain. It would make some headlines, and then they'd announce a bunch of new hires, and then people would wonder about the mystery, and we'd move on, right? Because there's no individual at Coca-Cola that contains all the value. It's the assets, it's the distribution channels, it's the marketing, it's the secret formula. It's all of those things that go into the full business where no one person controls the value. Now, when you're a seed stage, Series A, even Series B company or startup, depending on what kind of business you are, you're kind of 50-50, meaning there's a lot of value in the business, but if one or two or three key people left, the whole business could potentially collapse, right? So the goal is, especially early on or wherever you are in the discussion, frame where you are with what the expectations are. If you're a late stage company, you better be talking about A, the team that's leading it, because that still inspires confidence, but B, all of the assets and cash flows and data and all the things you've collected that make the business valuable. If you're a super early idea stage company, you want to speak to the credibility and the knowledge and the market research and the industry understanding that the team has, where you can say, this doesn't exist. We don't have a single thing written down, but we know this is a problem. We know that we can build a solution, and we're confident that we're the right people to do it. Exciting. Last is ask. Now, this is a little pro tip. One, somebody's always looking for something, right? You're always looking for a connection. You're always looking for money, right? You're always looking for something. The best advice I can give you here is, if you're looking for money, know how much money you're looking for. Again, and we'll talk about that in another video, but we'll know how much money you're looking for and why, and the time period and the investment. But the pro tip here is, have an ask that's not money too, because most founders, or many founders, are under the unfortunate presupposition that money solves most things, right? Or investment solves most things. And investment's different than sales, right? Sales can solve a lot of things because there's a lot of validation and growth and things you can do with it. Just raw money, it needs to be implemented, it needs to be acted on, it needs to have the right team behind it, it needs to have the right business development behind it, whatever. But it needs more than just money. So by having an ask that is not money, it could be that you want to meet a certain person or you're interested in connections of a certain seniority or a certain title in an industry. It opens the door, A, because what if I don't have any money? But what if I'm really connected? What if I just know everybody that you want to know, but the only thing you ask me is for 100 grand? I can't help you. And worse yet, you just see me as a money pit. And that doesn't make me feel good. I don't care how much money I have or how well known an investor I am. If I'm just your wallet, that it's not exciting to me, right? That doesn't make me feel like good as a person. So have a good ask and have a specific ask. And you can vary and change it. And again, all of this is iterations. You should figure out what works best for you and what's appropriate for the audience. Your 5 to 10 minute pitch. Everything from your 60-second pitch plus a few more things. You're likely going to start digging into your business and revenue model if you haven't already, right? You're going to start discussing how you make money, the different business lines, what you see your end value as being, if you're collecting data, if you're building revenue streams, if you're building, if you have a black box of information or patents that nobody has, right? What are the things that provide a lot of value? You're going to talk a lot about your competitors and the competitive advantages that you have because you're competing, right? And I don't care if you're in a blue ocean, which is you're in an environment that has very low barriers to entry for innovation and it's very limited to no competition. So you can just go capture, everything. As you work, eventually someone's going to get smart enough to try and be the number 2 or number 3 or number 4. So knowing who's competing, whether it's directly or indirectly, whether it's a big company or a small company, is critical. A very awkward scenario that you'll see founders run into is an investor will ask them about a competitor that the startup has never heard of. That's awkward, right? Because what does that say about your market research? What does that say about your preparedness to compete? What does that say about, do you know what your competitive advantage is against them? Because if you don't, how are you going to win? If it's you and them in a room pitching a client, or they go in first, worse, they go in first, so they hype themselves up and say all these great things, how are you going to be able to speak to, oh, I see A, B, and C was in the room, it's great, they're great guys. No, listen, we understand what they do, and we understand they bring a lot of value. For us, we took a little different lens. We looked at it like this, A, B, and C, and all of a sudden you're able to break out the differentiators, the advantages, the unique offerings that maybe get the management team to go, that first company was good, but I don't know. I just think the second guys get it more. Like, I think they have a better focus. Again, it's because of the knowledge and thought you've put in there. Go to market. This is a big one because as soon as I believe that your product is something or could be something, I want to know how you're going to get it out there. Building a better mousetrap is the first 20% of building the billion-dollar mousetrap company. I need to know your channels. I need to know your connections. I need to know that you've thought through a marketing strategy that was more than, we're going to spend $100,000 a month on Facebook ads and we're going to grow to be a billion-dollar company. If that's all it took, then that's all people would do. And clearly that's not all people do. There wouldn't be so many networking groups and marketing flyers and channels and lead gens and this and that if that was the only thing and the only way that this worked. So understanding your marketing, your sales, your business development, and all the implications as much as you can. Again, this is not about being perfect. This is about what can you do. Don't leave the can do stuff on the table. Leave the stuff that you don't know how to do or that you're not aware that you should know how to do. The stuff that you're completely ignorant about on the table, because then you can learn and you can build and you can lean into those. And last but not least is your financial projections. This is going to be, so what are your expectations of the company? How quickly do you expect to grow? What revenue streams from your business and revenue model discussion do you expect to be the most meaningful, et cetera, et cetera? This is meat and potatoes, right? This is the hefty stuff. This is where having a fully built out financial model would inspire a lot of confidence and make these conversations much easier. But this is a great thing to begin to touch on because it shows your expectations for the company and how the investor might view the expectations as well. And it has the potential to get them really excited, And then last but not least is the 10+ minute pitch. Again, it's about basically perfecting everything from the first 3, but it's also talking about the market. This is when things get a little bit more strategic, where it's, what markets? US, Europe, Asia? What size of market? Have you thought of going up or down the food chain for your customer? So yeah, you serve, healthcare facilities located in the Midwest. Have you thought of like hospitals in the Midwest? Have you thought of patience in the Midwest? You start to get really creative and start to have more fulsome discussions about what's going on, what are the inner machinations of the business, and how can you make this, just that much better. And then last but not least, and timeline and milestones is kind of an all-encompassing one. It comes up at every level, but it's less focused on, and it's not the most, punchy thing in the world. I'd rather speak to traction over timeline. But timeline and milestones basically show you're making progress. We started this in 2019. We had our idea in Q1. We had a rough MVP built by Q3. We did a bunch of market validation between those two periods. We launched and got our first dollar in the early part of the next year. It shows there's a timeline and progress. One of the things we always teach our startups is if you can't show progress, you can't show anything. Because unless you're moving, right? Unless you're running, because that's what the investor wants to see, you're not going to inspire confidence. And it's not to say you can't have had the idea 10 years ago in an engineering class and now you're bringing it to reality. There's perfectly valid reasons to have large gaps in between your timeline. But are things getting done? Like, are things being noted? Is meaningful, notable, put on the page worthy progress being made? If not, you should ask yourself why not and what you can do to bring that level of excitement and action and progress to the forefront as quickly as possible. Because, of course, your competition eventually is, and they eventually will. And you want to win, and you can win, but you got to win thoughtfully, intentionally, strategically. And it's not about being perfect. And I say this 100 times, and I'll say it 100 times more, but it's about being optimal and doing your best. And a lot of people think like, oh, I did my best. It's like, really? If you really had to answer to yourself, to your mom, to your dad, to whoever's meaningful, and they said, did you really do your best? If the answer is not yes, then I invite you to get back to work in the best way possible and to build something incredible that you can be proud of. So let's talk about some of the best practices when you're actually doing these pitches, because of course there's a ton that goes into them and you don't want to mess them up. So first is know who you are and know what you want. What this means is it's simple, right? For me, I'm Hispanic. I'm from the Southwest. I'm from Arizona. I'm a former investment banker. I live in the Southeast. I am the co-founder of a fintech business and an esports business. So I know things about me. So those things are, and we'll talk about this later, hook points. They give me self-awareness and a way to relate or engage in the communities that are available to me. You owe it to yourself to tap into everything available to you. If you're Eastern European or you're South African or you're whatever, and there's an Eastern European or South African club, or you're building the esports company or a company that serves this particular market or this customer segment, and those groups are available, you should acknowledge that and use that to your advantage. It's never about how you get started. It's always about how you finish. So you are what you are either way. You may as well get something great out of it, right? And really lean into it as best as you possibly can. Next is know what value you can offer. Most people are me monsters. Me, myself, and I. And what can you do? And how can I get something from you? And blah, blah, blah. My success, and I'll speak to, many of our clients and my employees and different people that I work with, we win because we offer value first. We go out there and we go, everyone's a me monster that wants something. How can we be you monsters and give and give and give and build relationships and offer things and show people that we're smart and that we care and that we want to build their company well and that we're not greedy and that we're just doing things right. If you don't know what your skill sets are, if you don't know what things you can put out there first, how can you expect to, receive what somebody else might want to give you or their skill set or anything else involved in that way? Toss out and listen for hook points. This is an important piece. So hook points is a phrase, and I don't know if I pulled it from somewhere or just came up with it. It doesn't really matter. But the point is, if you've ever been listening to a conversation or been at like a networking event or a family outing, it doesn't really matter, but you've ever been somewhere and someone's talking to you and you're just bored, right? You don't want to be rude, but you're just bored. But then they're talking, and all of a sudden they say, da 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 da, Star Wars, and your ears perk up. You feel your attention get hooked, right? That is what just happened, right? Now, everybody's dropping hook points all the time. When you meet a new friend and you start talking about hobbies or interests or this or that, and you discover you like the same show, you both are hooking each other, right? You're getting excited. You're finding a way to build that connection, build that bridge. So the more that you, again, speaking to one and two, know what you're offering, know who you are, know what you're looking for, the better you can toss out these hook points and the better you can bite onto people's that are appropriate for you anyway. Because if somebody goes, I'm just looking to get some advice on like this MVP build, like I've never built a startup before and I don't really know how you think about the initial features. If you're somebody that knows about that, but you don't know anything about business, why don't you help that person a little bit? Because I'd be willing to bet if it's not them, then the fifth person you help and do the same thing for, they go, oh, I know a business guy I can probably introduce you to, or I actually know a little bit of business. Well, what do you need help with? And you build this reciprocity, you build this relationship, all because you were listening and you were trying and you were tossing things out there that were meaningful. Next is speak to value first and vision second. I meet a lot of founders that always want to talk to me about the $1 billion version of their company. And here's the truth, I have no interest in that because unless we build the $10 version, we're never going to get there. It's reality. We're never going to get there. So I have no interest in the future. I have an interest in the present and planning for the future. So speaking to value, speaking to the valuable traction you have, speaking to the valuable customer research that you've done, speaking to the valuable market research and customer discovery and Facebook groups that you've built that have 1,000 engaged people in there, whatever. That excites me more than billions and billions and billions of dollars in the future because that's where it starts. That's always where it starts. So I would encourage you, speak to as much value first as you can, both giving value, receiving value, talking about the great things you've done. Be humble, be excited. It's better to be, the way I think about it is we've all had an excited and really passionate like science teacher or math teacher in our life. And you're like, my God, like how could they love this stuff so much? Well, how can you love compliance so much? How can you love marketplace opportunities so much? Because it means something to me, because I'm the one building it, because I understand the implications. It makes it exciting, and that enthusiasm is contagious, and you're able to really use it to build some great relationships. Audience. Understand your audience both as a person and a position, right? I meet people all the time that talk about venture capitalists like they're aliens, and they're not aliens. They're just people. They're very rich people, they're very connected people, they're people in a very difficult position, and some of them manage it very well and some of them don't, just like everybody, right? There's good people and bad people, there's people that do their job well and there's people that do their job incredibly poorly, right? But whoever you're talking to, they're a person first, right? They're not venture capitalist. They're Anna, they're Steve, they're John, whoever. And then they're their position. They're the GP, they're the analyst, they're the lead mentor, they're an angel investor, whatever. It doesn't really matter. But it's one of those, if you think of them more as people, and then also engage with them appropriately based off their position, you'll find that you'll build much more authentic and genuine relationships that lead to something, even if it's just a friendly piece of advice. Not everybody has to be the person that gives you the value. Sometimes they're simply one or two or three, connection points away from the person that's going to give you the great idea. It's going to write the $100,000 check that's going to introduce you to that big California venture capital firm. But you don't know if every single time you talk to somebody, it's only me monster thoughts. What can I do? Here's my $1 billion company. How can you help me? It's like, who wants to help that person? I mean, respectfully, I don't. I much rather prefer the person like, hey, I'm working hard on this idea. I just really love it because I think automation in cars is going one way. And I think there's a great angle for like safety because I got in an accident when I was younger and it really impacted my life. And I don't want anybody else to suffer like that. You know what I mean? And oh, you work in a startup. You're like a startup advisor. Why don't you tell me about that? Like, who do you guys work with? What do you guys do? I'm excited to talk to that person because they're engaging me and they're speaking passionately about something that's relevant to them, not just because they're rich or not just because they're fancy or not just because they're a startup founder, both me or them, just because we're two people in the room talking to each other, which is a great thing and a great place to start. And last but not least, don't pitch, just speak. This is it sounds so simple, but I'll give you the clearest example. We've all been in rooms, whether it's classrooms or business rooms or whatever, board meetings, whatever, where you're talking with someone, or you hear someone talking to like a friend or another person. And then as soon as they go into their presentation, their whole tone and engagement and mentality completely shifts. And it sounds super high pitched, and it's like 1,000% salesy, and it's designed to leave these like big, bold. It's like, no, that's not how you engage, right? I would hope that even you all watching this video right now, you see that I care about this stuff. I don't have to fake enthusiasm. I could do this at 11 o'clock at night or 11 o'clock in the morning. And other than a little bit of caffeine difference, I'm going to be the same because I love this and it excites me. So I'm not pitching. I'm not teaching, even though I am. I'm just speaking to you about things that I know about and things that I think are really valuable and things that I think will help you move forward. So, can you turn your pitch into an excited explanation? Can you turn your pitch into a passionate dialogue of people? How can you make it so that you're coming off authentic and engaged and like somebody who really wants their solution and their product and cares ultimately about their end customer, right? And can make it something great. So I know this was a lot. I know I talk a lot and I talk pretty fast, so feel free to slow down the video or do whatever you need or watch it a couple times. But hopefully, this gave you a really nice overview of four of the most common startup pitches, as well as the different areas, the different focuses, the different considerations, and then, of course, some big best practices that I think will serve you well, both near term and long term, as you mature into building your business and do all the things that are required to build, grow, and scale. So, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.